So welcome everybody to our talk tonight. I'm Michael Dalton. This is Bioenergy Healing. And our talk tonight is healing animals and animals that heal. And there's a couple of topics I wanted to discuss around that, about how animals communicate, about how animals heal and how they heal us as well as us healing them. There's like this symbiotic relationship, and of course how we can offer healing and receive healing from animals. So I thought we'd enter into this subject tonight. It's great to see such a big response to our webinar tonight, and I think it's because generally, like, people like animals, right? Like sometimes, as I said, people like animals more than they like people, and I think there's a reason for that. And probably unconditional love is the first reason for that, is the love that we feel for animals. And I mean, you even think of having like a dog in your house, and every time you come home, the dog is happy to see you. The dog is jumping up in the air, happy to see you. I had this beautiful big white husky, and every time I go away for the weekend, I'd be maybe working the weekend, and I go away for the weekend, and I come back, and the dog would almost break down the door as soon as he smelt I was outside. And then once the door was open, I was on the ground being kissed for like 5-10 minutes before I could get up. And the love that an animal can have for their owner is immense, and the love that the owner has for an animal can be, again, immense. And I worked with a lot of people, and unfortunately I've also seen a lot of like death when it comes to animals, and the grief that people feel for the death of an animal is the same, if not more, sometimes grief that people feel for a person that dies. And that can be strange to process, because it's like, for people that haven't really deeply connected with animals, it's hard to understand that. But it's like, when people have a true bond with their animal, it's incredibly powerful bond. And sometimes, like I said, even more than the bond between two humans is that bond. There's something raw and real and authentic about it. So the first thing I was going to share was like as I said, I've been doing bioenergy healing for over 30 years, and I've got an opportunity to witness a lot of things in relation to healing, in relation to energy healing, and in relation to communication in multiple ways. And when it comes to understanding animals or healing with animals, there's a couple of things that I'd like to start off with. And I would say the first one is like how animals communicate, and the kind of obvious one, the first kind of understanding of that would be sound and behaviors, right? So like the dog running out the door, jumping all over me, that behavior is like, I missed you, I thought you were gone forever, I'm glad you're home, and you go away, and then you come home after a weekend, and maybe your partner isn't happy to see you, your children's not happy to see you, but the dog is happy to see you, and it's like, it doesn't matter what happens, it's like the dog is always happy to see you. There's an unconditional love about that, but the sounds and behaviors, like I have a beautiful cat now. She's about 5 years of age, and when I walk into the kitchen, she runs into the kitchen and she jumps up on the counter, and she like lets out a scream. And I very much know what she's saying. Like, she's literally saying, and you can probably guess, right? You can probably guess what she's saying. Like, I go into the kitchen, so think about the kitchen, and she jumps on the counter, so she's getting up around the same height, and then she screams. And what is she screaming for? Treats. She's like, give me a treat, give me a treat. And it's not, you don't need to be psychic to pick that up. It's like animals literally will communicate. Sometimes a dog will bark when they need something. I've seen dogs go up to food bowls and bark at the food bowl because it's empty. and remind the owner, yeah, I want food in the bowl, or bark beside a bowl because there's no water in it. I've even seen dogs pick up the bowl and bring it to the owner, right? Like, so any of us that have dogs or cats, you may be familiar with some of these like sounds or behaviors. But there was a point where I remember I was driving one day in the car, and I had this little dog with me. His name was Simba, and I'm driving along, and it's like I hear the word treats in my head over and over. And I'm driving along, and I hear this like treats, 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 like a little old man's voice, which he was like a little old man dog. And I hear this like treats, treats, treats. And I turn and I look at him, and he's sitting in the passenger seat, and he's staring at me. He's literally staring at me. And it's almost like he's putting these like psychic words in my head. And I look at him, and I literally said to him, I know what you're doing. And then he turns his head around. When if a dog like went to the rubbish bin and you found out, the dog would kind of like, how they're ashamed. Like, he literally was like, he knew what he was doing, and I knew what he was doing. And he was like literally implanting that in my head, like to give him treats. And it was funny because I had treats in the door of the car, and he knew that I had them there. And so he was literally implanting that in my head. So like the first way that like animals often communicate is that like sounds and behaviors. But the second way, and this is the really interesting one that I found, is literally telepathy. Animals communicate with telepathy. They literally put thoughts inside your head, and I know that might sound a little bit bizarre, but I think for anyone who's had an animal, you're like, it's not that strange. It makes a lot of sense, right? Animals are literally communicating to you psychically. And you have receptors on the surface of every cell in your body. Every single 70 trillion cells in your body, every cell has a receptor. And what's a receptor? It's for receiving signals. And just like a radio station broadcasts, like is broadcasting the signal, and you've got your car radio and you tune into the signal, you're picking up that signal. Well, communication is no different for animals communicating to us. They're broadcasting a message, right? They're broadcasting. And if you're tuned into the frequency, you can hear what they're saying. You can literally hear it in real time if they're actually talking to you. And, when you think of your phone, I mean, nowadays you can FaceTime someone. I mean, look at us. We're basically FaceTiming each other right now, right? And we don't think anything of it. We just see it as being normal, right? But think about how this is actually happening. How is this happening that you're seeing me and I'm seeing you, and we're communicating, and we're not in the same room? We're not even in the same room. We're communicating. Some of you are in different countries. I know Karen is over is it Australia, Karen? I think it's Australia. That's pretty far away from Canada. Some of you are in other locations, but yet we think nothing of the fact that we're talking to each other through technology, and it's just normalized. And yet there's other levels of communication that we talk about in bioenergy, and animals do it very naturally. Like, as humans, we also communicate telepathically. We do it all the time. We just, we're not often aware that we're doing it, or we've let go of our inner technology to receive it, but it doesn't mean that it isn't happening all the time. And sometimes you notice it when, have you ever kind of like, you thought about somebody and then they rang you, right? You're literally thinking of them and then they call you. The phone rings and you know who it is before you answer it, right? And it's like you're tuning into those vibrations. Well, with animals, it's very similar. You're tuning into the vibrations of the animal. And it's like, if you were in a car, you would tune your radio to the station that you want to listen to, right? If you want to listen to the news, please don't. But if you wanted to, you know, tune into that station. If you want to listen to, you know, Louise Hay, Heal the Day or something, you know, you tune into that station, right? So you tune into what it is that you want to listen to. So we have technology inside of us, not just to help heal animals, but to actually listen to animals. And it's just about tuning into it. It's about tuning our frequencies into it, like a tuning fork, right? You're tuning yourself in. So I found like there's a couple of common things that wild animals do when they're looking for healing. So I've been kind of like, I've had some very interesting experiences with wild animals where they've actually come to me for healing. And the first thing is like, how do they know that I'm going to do a healing session on them? I've literally done healing sessions on wild animals. And, you know, how do they know that I'm doing healing, right? On some level, they know. On some level. Sorry, can you see me? It's freezing up a little bit. The picture, yeah, just nod your head if it's okay. Give me the tone. Or is it frozen? Yeah, just give me 1 second. Just gonna pause our video for 1 sec. Okay, sorry about that momentary freeze. Yeah, so we're just talking about like wild animals and how animals there's common themes that they kind of do. And the first one that I found, like when animals are looking for healing, firstly, they know if you're able to offer them healing. How they know, I don't know how they know, but I think it's vibrational. I think they feel it. Like animals feel the person that they're tuning into. And it's like a lot of times animals, like one of the ways that they communicate too is that they reflect people's emotions back to them, right? So animals reflect, like they mirror and reflect emotions back to them. We can talk about that in a moment. Like everything from horses will do that probably more than any other animal. But animals reflect emotion back to people. Like they literally tune in at a much more like psychic telepathic level than most people are aware of. So animal will tune in on that level. And then what I found was that a wild animal will come up to you. So say like I've had raccoon, deer, foxes, birds. The raccoon was probably the funniest one out of the whole lot, but like literally raccoon came right up to me, and its eye was all cut and its paw was cut, and it literally came up to me and stood up in 2 legs and just stood in front of me. And I could just like, I was actually doing, strange enough, I was doing bioenergy healing on somebody outside. They had a little cottage, and I was just outside the cottage doing it on their deck, doing healing on their deck. And the raccoon came up on the deck, and I was near the end of the session, and the raccoon just waited to the end of the session. Then I went over and I literally gave the raccoon a healing session. And the moment I was finished, the raccoon left. And the weirdest thing that happened, this sounds crazy, it happened 4 days in a row. So I was given the person 4 consecutive healing sessions over 4 days, and the raccoon came up to the deck at the end of each session. I mean, it's crazy. The raccoon comes up to the deck at the end of each session and sits down and waits for his healing session. And then I do some healing on his eye and on his paw. And then the moment I'm done the healing, like I'm thinking I'm done. And the moment, this is the communication part. Whenever I felt, okay, I'm done doing the healing, the animal like immediately leaves. It's like it doesn't matter what animal I've worked on. The moment I'm like, okay, I'm done with the healing, they leave. They literally, they know, they're able to communicate it, right? So Yeah, the raccoon was a funny one. I was walking in this like other area, and this wild fox came up, and literally it looked terrible. The poor thing looked quite mingy, you know, and the fox came up and just like laid down right in front of me. And a part of me was like, you know, I don't know if I want to touch the fox because it doesn't look healthy at all. But I was like, luckily bioenergy is hands off. So I like just sat down right in front. I just sat down on the ground, on the grass, and I gave the fox a healing session. And then the fox, like at the end of the healing session, I'm done. The fox gets up and he leaves and then stops and like looks back at me and just stares for a moment. And it was just like this most beautiful feeling of like, thank you. And then the fox like disappears. I was in an equestrian center, and this horse comes up to me, and the horse turns its head, and there's a big gash around the side of the neck, like just on the face to the neck, this big gash. And the horse literally holds its head out in front of me. And I'm like, you know, do you want some healing? Like, and the horse just like leaves its head there in front of me. So I literally start doing some bioenergy healing on the horse. I'm gathering up, you know, this is our bioenergy healing motion. We're gathering up the blocked energy, we release it, we let it go, and we repeat that. So I'm doing some hands-off healing on the horse's head. And as soon as I'm done, the horse, like I have the thought again, I'm done now, the healing. And the horse like just literally straightens its head up and walks backwards. It's really funny to actually see a horse walk backwards, but it backed away from me. And that was really bizarre. It's like, I don't know why it's funny to see a horse walk backwards. You don't kind of, you always think of them turning, but it was like the weirdest thing that happened. But oh, there's so many wild animal stories. That's just a small bit. But I think the common theme that I found is that like animals in need of healing will come up to you and they stare at you, and that staring is them asking, they're asking for help. And I feel like, you know, I've had a lot of animals come to me. Why specifically me? I think that they feel it. I think they feel the healing. They like, as I said, I've been healing for a long time. They feel it. They know. They're so tuned in. Animals are so intuitive. So intuitive. I mean, people kind of think of, yeah, horses are, and it's true, horses are, but so is your cat, so is your dogs, you know, like all animals are super intuitive. And I think part of that is because their senses are so much sharper, right? Like their senses, because they're not speaking in the verbal way that we do, they really rely on their senses. So they develop their senses in a much more sharpened kind of way. So that kind of first part that I was sharing is like animals will often communicate through their sounds or their behaviors. They'll often communicate through more that telepathy side, where they're literally trying to tell you things, you know, and even to the point where your own personal animals, domesticated animals, will often, maybe you might catch them, you're probably going to notice it now more and more, you'll catch them staring at you. And when they're staring at you, they're trying to communicate something to you. They're trying to tell you something. And when you catch it, maybe you're like, do you want to go for a walk? And it's just like, if you catch what they're trying to tell you, you'll immediately know, because they'll get so excited, right? They'll leap in the air. It's like you understood them, and they know once they'll know that level of communication. So the next part of the communication, I would say, is like that animals communicate and mirror emotions back to you. So like if your animal's stressed, it's often because you might be stressed, right? Like there's a great guy, what's his name? Caesar Milan. He's a great like dog whisperer, right? And he goes to people's homes with like difficult dogs and he trains them. But one of the things about that show, if anybody's seen it, is I don't think so much he's training the animals or the dogs as much as he's training the owners, right? Like he's trying to get the owners back in charge of the dog, especially for dogs because they're pack animals. They want, if you're not the alpha, then they're forced to be the alpha, right? So especially with dogs and a lot with other animals too. I would say except cats. Cats don't play by any rules to any, like, you know, people often say, are you a cat person or a dog person? I'm a cat and a dog person. If you really understand cats, they're feckin' fantastic. They don't give a shit about anything. Cats are awesome, you know. But I love dogs too. It's like, you know, I guess I love a lot of animals, a lot of different types. I love horses too, but the cats and dogs are, I think, are amazing. And we'll go into like how they kind of give us healing and how we can give them healing. But that first part of them mirroring the emotions is, I think, like that they're often showing us and reflecting our emotions back. They're like, animals are very like real and authentic, just like a horse. Like if you go up to a horse and you're stressed, the horse is going to know. Like you can't hide that from a horse. They can just see right through you. You know, they can feel you, they can see you. If you're riding a horse, they can feel if you're stressed. They literally just, you just can't hide it from them. They can just see right through you. In terms of like, I mean, horses, like, they're not the easiest animal to work on because they're so big. Like cats and dogs are pretty easy to do healing on. But the first time I had to go to, I went to Newcastle in England to treat a racehorse, and the thing was huge. And I hadn't kind of expected about how tall, you know, this racehorse would be, and it had an injury on its spine. And I wanted to do some work on its spine, but it's like, you know, just going up to this huge horse, it can be a bit intimidating too, right? Because they're pretty magnificent, you know. And I did some work on its spine. I mean, this horse had its own chiropractor. Isn't that amazing? Like this racehorse had its own personal chiropractor. And but it had been out of commission for, I think it was like 8 weeks, which it was just like not recovering in the way that they needed it to recover. And so I flew in from Ireland into Newcastle and I treated the horse, and gosh, it just had like, in the space of just working for 1 hour on the horse, they literally walked the horse around outside around the yard, and they could literally tell that the horse back had shifted. And they were like, I mean, I couldn't even tell that from like walking the horse. I could just tell it from the energy, like the energy had shifted in the horse's back. But they could tell by walking the horse, and they were like, you know, his back has shifted now. And amazingly, I got to ride the racehorse, you know, and they were like, just like trotting, not galloping or anything, but I got to go on this racehorse. But in terms of like the depth of communication that animals have, I think the first part for us is just learning to listen. Right? Learning to listen to our animals, and they will communicate. And their capacity to communicate has no limits. Like they can literally communicate full sentences if we're able to like relax ourselves enough and not intellectually get in the way, because we over intellectualize everything, right? Like we over process and over intellectualize. And the intellectual side of the brain is the left side of the brain. And the left brain is not the telepathy side. The telepathy part is the right side of the brain. So when we're in a super relaxed state, we open up that right side of the brain. And in that right side of the brain, now we're receiving, right? We're open to receiving stuff, right? So in healing, one of the key things to like even listening to a person's body, it's like you're learning to open up the right side of your brain to be able to listen to their body. Because even a person's body is communicating to you, right? Like, even if you don't do healing, people are always, even when people don't speak, they're communicating. I mean, we call that body language. There's a language in which their body communicates, and you're picking it up with your senses. You're seeing, feeling, hearing, smelling, tasting. You're picking up other people's language with your senses. And, I think women are generally a little better at that than men. That's why we call it women's intuition. They're generally better at picking up the non-verbal clues. And then I would say animals are even better than women. Animals are just next level, super at picking up information, at picking up information from their environment and from their surroundings. So then from that, then let's look at, say, how animals, like how they heal us, right? So now we come to the domesticated animals. So we'll take dogs and cats, right, to start off with. And I think, something about a cat that most people know is like when the cat purrs. So you have this purring effect of the cat, and it's a vibration, it's a resonance, right? Like it's like it literally vibrates at a frequency. I mean, the frequency is in hertz, like it's roughly like 20 hertz to 150 hertz. So it's in that range in which we're able to hear it and we're able to feel it, and we might, like, if a cat is sitting on you and it purrs, you'll feel the vibration, but you can also hear that range, like 20 to 150, you can hear a cat's purring, right? But that purr, because everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, that purr is how the cat, they're communicating that they're happy. When a cat purrs, it generally means that they're pretty happy. But more than that, cats purr because the vibration of it is very earthy. It's very grounding. It's like, if we were making sounds with like a didgeridoo, you could say it's very guttural. Well, purring for a cat is like very earthy. It's very like root chakra. Out of all the chakras, it's like the root chakra. It's a very earthy. And that sound, they found in studies, has a therapeutic effect on bones and muscles, which is very interesting. And then bones and muscles are also related to the root chakra. They're very earthy, right? Like your bones are made of earth. So that vibrational frequency of animals purring helps to, when an animal sits on you and starts purring, they're actually helping your bones and muscles, as well as, of course, the therapeutic effect, right? But the therapeutic of just having an animal sitting on you is literally therapeutic in itself. People with animals tend to suffer, less, their stress levels are lower. People with cats and dogs have lower blood pressure. There's multiple studies in this where lower cholesterol, where they're less likely to have heart attacks. Like, people with animals are less likely to have heart attacks. I mean, that's pretty good to know, right? Like, that's a nice thing. Like, you think of, you've got to walk your animal, you got to feed your animal, change their poop, but your animal is also doing a lot for you, right? Like, your animal is literally lowering your blood pressure, releasing stress hormones. I mean, the most common stress hormone is cortisol, and people often live in that more like fight, flight, like sympathetic nervous system, right? So when we're living in that more sympathetic drive, our cortisol level is quite high. And if we're like in very highly stressed states, we're even pumping a lot of adrenaline into our body, right? The adrenals are very active. And it's often like, it's really common. There's a huge increase in anxiety and stress, and also chronic fatigue. So, you know, chronic fatigue is adrenal fatigue. It's when people are like, they're just stressed all the time and they're not releasing their stress. Now, you introduce a cat or a dog into a home where there's stress, and like literally the cat and the dog will absorb the stress out of the owners. That's literally, they absorb the stress. Now that doesn't sound great for the cat or the dog, does it? You know, it doesn't. I think cats and dogs are natural healers. They're literally natural healers. They will absorb, you know. Now, you often see one of the things that animals do to reset their nervous system, you'll often see, is that they shake. You ever see that with birds? Like birds will shake. You see it with horses as well. Like that's the, even, you know, they do that. Oh, the horse does the shake. Well, birds shake, horses shake. You ever see a dog shake? Dogs shake all the time. Cats probably shake as much as birds do. They're literally shaking off their nervous system, you know. So petting animals, yeah, that's, we're gonna, and literally you took the words out of my mouth. So the first one was, sorry, someone just wrote petting animals, so I'm going to speak to that next. So the one with cats is, when cats purr, it's incredibly healing, and the vibration of their purr and the relaxation of their purr is incredibly healing, especially if they're sitting on you. They also help to heal their own body when they purr, you know. And cats are very self-sufficient, so they have their own healing mechanism inside them. They purr and they fix themselves. When they purr, it's very earthy, so they start harmonizing with the earth's magnetic field. They start to like ground themselves and balance themselves. And then that's the cats. And when we pet cats, of course, that's really, really good for them and really good for us. But also what's incredibly therapeutic is, as we say, petting animals, is petting a dog. You know, now the dog doesn't necessarily purr, but there's something about dogs where they are able to sit there and get you to pet them, right? Like they literally get you to come to them and pet them, right? And then you feel good. Like, yeah, I always think of like, animals, the reason I say animals are healers, animals are great healers. I mean, it, like, I think of like bioenergy is like, you know, bio is B and energy is E, right? So it's BE, it's B, right? And what are animals? But they're just like being, they don't have to do anything. They just be there, and their beingness like helps us, right? So in terms of petting a dog or a cat, it definitely reduces the cortisol levels in your body. It reduces your stress. It reduces the risk of heart attacks. It reduces cholesterol. It reduces your high blood pressure, you know, so it reduces those things. It balances out your chemical system. I've often found too, when people have animals when they're children, or when they have animals in the house with young children, the children are less likely to have allergies long term as they get older. I found that like over and over again, that, you know, sometimes if you get a parent who's very like anal, and they're very like, I don't want to have animals in case they cause an allergy, it's literally the opposite of true. That's, you know, like, you know, some people are very like overprotective, and will animals bring germs and all of that, and it's like, those germs are really good for children. You know, in the last 3 years, is like people forgot that we have an immune system, right? We have a natural immune system. We can heal ourselves. We have this phenomenal ability and power to heal ourselves with our own immune system. And you know, when animals are in a home, especially with young children, then the germs help to build up the children's immune system, and they're less likely to have things like asthma and allergies and stuff as the child is growing up. And so in terms of like, in terms of that the therapeuticness of having animals. There's also like, so that's our cats and dogs. But there's a kind of downside to this, which is that I think in some ways we've over domesticated animals. We over domesticate dogs. And I'm just gonna say it. If you have little shoes on your dog's feet when you bring them outside, stop. Don't do it. I know you think they look good. I know it keeps your apartment dry. And I know it's like you've paid for them, but don't do it. Absolutely do not do it, right? Like, and I'm going to tell you why, right? I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't do it. So, when I said, like, if you're stressed, your animal will take that stress out of you. That's just by being, that's what they do. They absorb the stress of their owner. But how animals let go of stress is when they're grounded. When they have their paws on the ground, the stress runs out of them and into the ground. It's called earthing. It's a whole system of natural healing. The same happens for us. If we put our bare feet on the ground outside, and not on the ground in your apartment, not on wooden floors, not on concrete, either, it's generally not grounded, right? Unless the concrete is wet, and it's not generally wet inside your home. So tiles, unless they're placed directly on the earth, but if there's any space, any wood, then they're not going to be grounded. Like, wood is a semiconductor, so unless it's wet, you're not getting when I say you're not getting the natural electricity from the earth. So we are, like, in terms of, so this is me, the energy healer, explaining the energy system of your body to you, right? Your body is an electrical system. It's not just the physical body, it's an electrical system. And your electrical system, you have a certain amount of potential electrical energy in your body. And when that energy gets really depleted, your animal will share their energy with you. And they will absorb any blocked energy into them. Like, your animals will literally absorb energy. And then when they go outside and they have their bare feet on the earth, that energy will be released. The earth transforms it, and then the animal fills up with natural healing energy from the earth again. And so when you don't have that contact with the earth, so that means, like, if you put little shoes on your dog's paws, now the dog's paw is not in contact with the grass or with the earth. Now, even if it's walking on the pavement, that's okay, because the pavement outside is still damp. So it still is a conductor of electricity. So what's that electricity? Well, that electricity is the natural free electrons that flow around and through the earth. So there's a free energy available to all of us. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Free energy. There's a free energy in the form of electrons that flow through in and around the earth. And for people, it comes into our body through, we call the root chakra. So it feeds into the root chakra, also through the crown chakra, and it forms a toroidal field, and it fills us up with free energy. And the same happens for animals. It feeds the animal with free energy. But when the animal is indoors a lot of the time, and then when it goes outdoors and it's not having its feet on the ground, it's not getting the free electrons that it needs to rebalance itself, to bring itself back into an even level of health. Does that make sense? Yeah, so wild animals tend to heal quite well. Like, generally, they tend to heal a lot better just because they're out in the earth. Their paws are on the ground. They sleep on the ground, right? They're not sleeping in a, our animals now are sleeping in a lovely bed, right? They're in their nice bed. Some people might even have a pillow for their animal. But it's like, animals, like, I have to admit, when I grew up, our dogs lived in our back garden, and they had kennels, but they were never sick. Our animals were never sick. And it's just because they spent so much time outside. They came into the house, but they also spent so much time outside. And I think the same is true for us, right? Like, that when we over domesticate ourselves, right? we go outside now, we have shoes on. You don't want to go out in your bare feet. Well, of course you need shoes on. Like what? Of course you do, right? But when we have our bare feet on the ground, when we put our bare feet in the water, when you stand in the ocean, you know, you're literally filling yourself up with those free electrons. I mean, think water is a superconductor. So when you have a shower, you feel really energized after. Isn't that true? You know, when you are out in the rain, have you ever been out in the rain and you come in from the rain and you feel super energized? Yeah, of course you do. It's a superconductor. Water is a superconductor, so you feel super energized. Have you ever done some gardening and you feel great? I mean, your back is sore because you're bending over, but you actually feel great. Well, the reason you feel so good is because your hands are in the earth, right? You're literally connected to the earth. And so one of the ways I think that we can help like bring animals back to their natural healing is to give them outdoor time. Let them swim in the water. Let them have outdoor time. Let them be on the grass, be in the sand. You know, I mean, there's signs up now. You can't even bring your dog onto the beach, right? Dogs love being on the beach. It's so good for them. So you got to find a specific dog beach where you can bring them there, where they can swim in the water, get all those supercharging energy into them, you know. And then like, so that's a kind of like a natural thing that you can do, right? Like you can bring your animal to the water outside, don't have shoes on it, and it will help the animal to restore its natural energy. And then another thing I think you can do for your animal's healing is heal yourself of your own stuff, right? Like heal your own baggage. Because if you don't heal your own baggage, your animal is going to store it for you, because they're just unconditional love, right? That's what they'll do. They will take on your baggage. And so put your own baggage down, right? Do your healing, do your work, right? If you don't do your work, other people are having to do your work for you, right? You know, if you don't do your work, other people have to do the work for you. And if it's not other people, if you're like, well, I don't have any animals, guaranteed there's people in your home who are doing your work for you, right? If you're not doing your healing and doing your work, then your ego is winning, right? Your ego is having everyone else like jump around, like walking on eggshells, like they can't say something or they might upset you, they can't trigger you, you know. So when we reach that point where we're not doing the work on ourselves and someone says something and you get triggered, then you put the blame and the responsibility onto the other person. But when you do the work on yourself and you realize someone says something to me, it triggers me, that's mine, that's not theirs. And I'm not blaming, not guilting them, not shaming them. And then you take that and you look and you say, why do I feel triggered? You know, you could even thank it. You can say, thank you. Oh, this triggers me. I'm really annoyed right now. Thank you. I mean, that's strange for people. They're like, what? You're saying thank you to your triggers? Absolutely. I always say thank you to my triggers. Because the moment I welcome it, it has no power over me. But everything that I don't want, everything that I resist, persists, right? The one thing I've learned about healing is what you resist persists. So when healing, anything that you want to get rid of in healing, so just bringing it about your own healing for a moment, but if there's things that you want to get rid of, you know, whether it's back pain, arthritis, whether it's anger, guilt, shame, whatever it is, like the more you fight against it, you're going to keep having it. Whether it's 10 years go by, 20 years go by, you're going to be fighting the same stuff, right? So all what healing is healing is helping us to, first of all, slow down, come into presence, receive what is there to be received, and to release it and to heal it, and then return back to, like, what are we doing in healing? We're returning back to the true self. And the true self is unencumbered by baggage. The true self is unencumbered with the egoic wounding. So what's the ego? The ego is simply the wounds that we have from childhood. The wounds where shit has happened to us, right? Like stuff has happened to us, and we have a protective mechanism around ourselves, a defense mechanism. And when we have that defense mechanism around us where we're not releasing the wounding, here comes animals, and they just, in their just love and openness and wanting you not to be so defensive and protective, they can feel your emotions. Animals feel your emotions, not just what you show them, but they feel everything. And animals will naturally try to break down your defense mechanism. Even wild animals will try to break down that defense mechanism and get you to open your heart. You know, it's really, really incredible. I think another wild animal that is amazing at that, like, is the animal known for its unconditional love is the deer. So wild deer, they have the capacity to bless a person with grace. Now, what does that mean? Well, animals are not just like we have our cats and our dogs, and, you know, maybe you go visit a nice horse or something, but there's so many more animals and everything in between, and they all have something to offer us. And, you know, in animal medicine where they say that each of us has like spirit animals that come and help us in our life and help us in our journey. And these spirit animals, they represent like real animals, and they can come to us at different times in our life. And the deer is one of those animals that they can come to you, and you could maybe come face to face with a deer, and they have the capacity that if they consider you worthy, that they will bless you with grace. And basically what they do is they stare into your eyes and they hold the frequency of unconditional love, and you will just melt, and your heart completely melts, and you feel grace. It's like you're in the grace of God. You're in the grace of supreme being, and it comes through the deer. And I mean, you know, intellectually we can say, look, everything is spiritual and everyone is spiritual and animals are spiritual and people are spiritual. And, you know, we can know all of that intellectually, right? But when you have that encounter where the deer blesses you, it's unlike anything else that you experience. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful gift that the deer gives you. You'll never forget it. Like it never leaves you. It leaves something in you, some level of like self-acceptance or self-love. It gives you some level of love that maybe you didn't have before. And so the deer is able to bless you with grace. Oh, such a beautiful thing. And then I think like another one is like horses. Horses can bless us with strength. Like horses are just beautiful and powerful and majestic, and they have a capacity to fill us with courage. Horses can give us strength and courage. Dolphins are known for healing. You know, there's they've done so many studies, and some studies say, look, dolphins don't have any real benefits. You know, there's no studies that prove it. And then there's a lot of like therapeutic evidence that people say, well, their child was sick and they brought their child there, and their child recovered from like autism, or like had like their capacity to communicate opened up after they brought the child to the dolphin. And people believe it's the sonar technology that the dolphin has, that the dolphin, through making sounds, and people believe like even with whales, like dolphins and whales make healing sounds. It's, you know, it's those sonar sounds, they're like incredible, they're beautiful, right? and that they have the capacity to vibrate like a tuning fork, to vibrate through us, and that dolphins can even target it to an area of your body. That's how precise they are with the sonar technology. Now, some people say, well, that sounds like very out there. Well, not really. If you think of in a hospital, and you go into the hospital and you're having, like, think of all the technology that we're using now. Is it really that different than technology that we already have inside of us, or technology that animals use, right? You know, ECGs, MRIs, like, it's all electrical, it's all magnetic, electromagnetic, ultrasounds, right? They're bouncing vibrational frequencies, right? It's like a sonar, right? They're sonaring in, vibrating, like a dolphin sends out a sonar and then is able to vibrate and feel the environment that it's moving into. Well, in an ultrasound, we're sending the vibration into the body, getting feedback back. You know, bats send out these sounds, right? And the sounds bounces off things, and bats can actually, I mean, they're blind, right? They don't see, so but they can actually feel their way around through the sounds. Well, here's a crazy thing that's happened, and it's happened now multiple times. And it's where some people who have been blind, they're using the same technology as bats. What does that? Some children who've been blind, they're able to make sounds, and the sounds ricochet off the room that they're in, and the blind child is able to determine where furniture and stuff is in the room based on the sounds bouncing off the furniture. Isn't that amazing? That's the technology. Like, we're not even aware of what we're capable of as human beings. We're not even aware of it, right? But so children have been learning the same technology that bats have, right? And using it to be able to see. You know, and I saw a documentary recently of one lad, and he's able to skateboard, blind. He's able to skateboard down the street and avoid like crashing into things, you know, using sound and vibrating it out through resonance. So I think, like, when we come back to like animals and healing, they have vibrations, they have frequencies, they give them out, they send them out, we receive them. You know, there's a communication that takes place, whether it's horses, whether it's dolphins. I've had like sometimes people will get, like, I was speaking to spirit animals, and sometimes you get like a spirit animal will come to you. And I remember I was doing a sweat lodge, and that night I was doing it like a sweat lodge weekend. And so that night I had these crazy dreams of these huge black birds, like ravens. And so the next morning we were getting ready for the next sweat, and I was telling the elder that, you know, I had these crazy dreams. And he said, what were your dreams of? And I was like, raven. And he just looks at me in the eyes and he's like, yeah. He says, you have raven medicine. And of course I was like, what does that mean? What does raven medicine mean? And he says, the raven is like the trickster, but they're the magician. They move between worlds. And their medicine is one of, like, there's a real intelligence about their medicine. It's like play and laughter. And he said, that's your medicine. And I didn't understand it at the time, but then, you know, as I was practicing bioenergy and teaching courses, I realized that, oh, that's what he meant. I'm a real trickster when it comes to, like, to teaching people, because I use different ways to help people understand, you know, their blockages, to see the things that they're not seeing. You know, I'll trigger people, or I'll challenge people on purpose just to bring up their stuff so that they can heal. And I have my own ways of working, and sometimes it's like humor, right? Like, I think that humor is a beautiful way to help with healing, because when we get, like, one of the things that causes illness and sickness is people being too serious, right? And so I'll sometimes go into a deep topic and get really serious about something, and then I drop some humor in, everybody will start laughing, and then in that humor, people are receiving the message that I wanted to get through. And that's the Raven medicine. So anybody who's doing healing, you know, maybe you have a spirit animal that comes to you to help you, like whether you're aware of it or not, there could be an animal that just keeps, maybe you keep seeing it, or maybe you dream about it, or, you know, but they're often trying to come to you and communicate to you. They're in between the physical world and the spirit world, and they can come to you either through dreams, or they can come like as physical animals. And you know, sometimes bears will, you might see a bear at a time that you really need strength, right? Bears represent a lot of strength and nurturing. So different animals can come to us at different times. They can bring messages, they can carry messages for us, right? The animals carry messages of communications for us, and they can be guidance to us on our journey. Animals will communicate information that we might need at that time. And so this is a kind of beautiful kind of idea of, like, the more we're living in harmony with ourselves, with nature, with the animal world, there's a beautiful symbiotic relationship and communication that takes place between animals and people. And it's such a beautiful gift, you know. I think that animals are such a beautiful gift to us. And I know, like, I know a lot of people, especially when they lose their dog, they really grieve a lot, you know, they really grieve. And I always hear people say, why, like, why does their animal live so much less? Like, it's not fair. And, you know, they say, like, that an animal, they basically live, like, for every year that we live, it's like 7 years on an animal, right? Like, so it's like, and I think the calculations of that are based on basically the life expectancy of an animal versus the life expectancy of a human is a ratio of 1 to 7. So on a ratio of 1 to 7, animals will live, you know, 1 year, 7 years, or, well, why am I saying it? 1 year for every 7 years that we live. Now, if we were to bring that back to a week, so for every 7 days that we live, just as an example, for every 7 days that we live, if you were to take that the animal lives 1 day, right? That means that they have to pack a whole lot more into that 1 day, right? So we have a whole week to experience something. If you imagine an animal is experiencing that whole week in 1 day, that's why they're so present. They're so present. There's nothing else happening for them. They're experiencing everything in that 1 day, in that one moment. And it's one of the beautiful things about animals is they're so present, right? Like, when you think of a cat, when a cat licks herself, she's not doing anything else. That's the only thing that's happening in the world. You know, that's the cat. Like, cats are teaching you what a yogi is. You know, you want to learn yoga? Watch your cat. And, you know, your dog too. Watch your dog stretch, right? They call it dog pose. But your cat is a yogi. Your cat is literally a yogi, right? And they're teaching us how to be present. They're teaching us how to live more fully in the present moment. You know, how not to worry about things, not to think about things, to really be in the present moment. You know, that's why when you're bringing your dog for a walk, all they want to do is smell everything. You know, they're tuning into every single thing. And, you know, nowadays, like, you want to help heal your dog. When you bring your dog for a walk and you bring your dog to the dog park, don't be on your phone, right? Don't put shoes on your dog, and don't be on your phone when you're bringing your dog for a walk. They're Michael's 2 tips, right? And like I said, the reason you don't want shoes in your dog is you want their feet on the ground. You want their paws in contact with the earth, and it fills them up with free electrons. It helps the dog to release the stress that they picked up from you. So it's really good, dog on the ground, outside, especially in the water. Dogs love to get in water, you know, absolutely let them do it, right? And then the second thing is, you know, if you're working during the day for that kind of working community where they're working during the day, maybe they're in an office, they're doing their work, they come home, the dog has been at home on their own all day. So the person brings the dog to the dog park, and then while the dog is in the dog park, they're on their phone. That's your time with your dog. Your dog has been on their own all day. If, you know, just, I'm just painting a scenario here. When you're with your dog, be with your dog, you know, be with them, you know. And I think cats are great at teaching us this. If you pet a cat unconsciously, she'll scratch you. You know, you have to be present. You know, you have to slow down and you have to connect with her. And she's telling you, go slowly, go softly. I'm right here. And sometimes we're living like unconsciously, and we just like pet the animal, and the animal like shakes themselves off. Yeah, because you're doing it unconsciously. They're picking up your stress and anxiety, right? So like you can deliberately pet your animal. You can deliberately spend time with them. You know, you can actually speak to them, just talk to them as if they can hear you. Literally talk to them as if they can hear you. And I guarantee you that your relationship with them will change. It's like people say, like, you know, how do you communicate with animals? Just talk to them and then listen for them to talk back to you. If you're busy all the time, how are you going to hear them, right? You just need to quieten down, right? And you're not going to hear your animal talking to you when you're on your phone. They don't have a phone. They're not ringing you, right? But literally, there was a study done where they found like that dogs, if you're in a job, you're in an office, and you have a dog at home, and you have the intention. So the moment you think like, okay, I'm going to go home, the dog gets up and goes over and waits at the door. They found this happens multiple times. Now, they even did a study where they wanted to see if the person went home at a different time from work, would it make a difference? Or was it that the dog knew what time, the dog expected them to come home at a certain time every day? And so they found that dogs could literally tell when the person was coming home. And it was that moment, it wasn't even like when they put their coat on, it was like, oh, I'm going home now. When they had the thought, that was the moment that the dog changed its reaction and then went to the door or got ready for them coming home. I mean, how beautiful is that? Another level of communication. I think that we forgot how to communicate telepathically, and I think we're returning to it. I think it's a new paradigm that we're in. I think we're returning to a few beautiful things where I think not just that animals have become over domesticated, I think that we've become over domesticated. And we've lost our connection to ourselves. We've lost our connection to our energy body, our electrical body, our magnetic body. And I think that we're returning to it. I think that, you know, we're shifting, like people are shifting from a point of like this automatic pharmaceuticals and this automatic looking outside of yourself and returning back to your body and your natural health and your natural well-being, living in harmony with yourself, living in harmony with nature, living in harmony with each other. And I think it's you know, as we return to those harmonies, like natural healing has always been there. Like it's not new. It's always been there, healing with nature, right? You know, animals help to heal us. We help to heal animals. And I think in between all of those is this beautiful modality that I work with, which is bioenergy healing. There's lots of wonderful modalities out there. Find one that works for you. But personally, what I love with bioenergy is it's so gentle, it's so non-invasive. It works on animals, it works on children, it works on babies, it works on people of any ages, any culture, any background. It has no limits, it has no conditioning, no program. It's just, what is bioenergy healing? It's just love. It's just pure unconditional love. And it's when we come together in a space where a person is open and willing to receive healing, and you meet them in that place where you are willing to step up and help that person to heal, and they come to a place where, just like the person goes to the deer and the deer blesses them with grace, as human beings, we have the capacity to come together and bless each other with healing, to come and help each other get out of our own way, and to release our wounds and release our pain and suffering and return to health and well-being. And as we return to health and well-being, I think that's one of the best gifts you can give for your animals, because your animals will reflect your behavior. Your animals will reflect your emotions. So the work that you do on you go and, I mean, I could say, look, bring your animals for a bioenergy healing session. Absolutely. It's a wonderful gift that you can give your animals. But I would say, before you bring your animal for a healing session, what about you bringing you for a healing session, right? Book yourself in for a healing session. And if you're not in Vancouver, I offer distant healing sessions. But book yourself in, do some work on you, and I guarantee your animal will benefit. Your animal, their behavior, everything will get better, right? Beautiful. I'm just going to read out a couple of messages here. As someone says, has this happened to you, Micah? Oh, that was in relation to the deer. Yeah, it did. It was really beautiful when the deer blessed me with grace, and something inside me changed, and then the deer, like, it's so interesting, like, so different animals can come to you at different time and share their healing with you. And so I had it where it was just like, it was this one particular summer. It might have been about maybe like 4 years ago, and it was one summer where I just kept coming face to face with wild deers. And I don't know what it was, like, I often go camping and do those kind of things, but it was just this one particular year where I kept coming face to face. And then it was almost like, it wasn't the same animal each time, but it was almost like a progression where the animal, like, each time I ran into the deer, we paused with each other a little bit longer, and then we turned and faced each other, and then we moved closer to each other. And then it's like the deer gifted me with grace. And then I just felt this, I was bawling, crying. I just felt this pure unconditional love through every cell of my being. And then I heard that it happened to other people too. I told someone about it, and they said that they'd heard of it. And then I checked it out, and I'm like, oh, this has happened to a lot of people. And it's a beautiful, 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 beautiful thing. But yeah, animals heal us. We heal animals. I hope that you've enjoyed our talk tonight. I hope that you can get something out of it. And if you're interested in the work I do, bioenergy healing, please check out my sessions, courses, training. I teach a level 2 bioenergy practitioner training. The next one starts in May, and it runs on a Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. It's like 2 classes in May, 4 in June, 2 in July, 2 in August, 4 in September, 2 in October, and 2 in November. So it's like classes on a Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 1:30, and it's through Zoom. And we go through all the bioenergy techniques, and we go through a healing journey through the chakras. And the beautiful thing about going through the healing journey through the chakras is that you're you're unraveling your blockages, you're unraveling yourself. I always think the best way to teach people how to heal, that you want to learn how to heal others, do the healing on you, right? So it's like, what I do is I teach people, we do the healing on you through the chakras, through the techniques. And when you learn it for you, you'll be able to do it for other people. But the benefit of that is that you're in a healthier place than when you go to work on people. There's no point in you doing healing on other people if you're pretty messed up yourself. No, you don't need to be perfect to be healing other people. I mean, there's nobody, I've heard people say, Michael, do you need to have no issues before you're working on other people? I don't know that that's true. Should you be levitating and doing spontaneous healing if you had no issues, right? Everybody has their issues. I think the difference, like what I'm sharing with you, is the difference with professional training is that when you train as a professional practitioner to be able to use natural energy healing to help heal yourself and others and animals, when you train professionally to do that the difference is that you still have issues. It's just like you're able to manage your energy and other people's energies. So like you're able to do the work without projecting your stuff onto other people, and as you're doing the work on yourself, you get a lot less baggage. Do you have no baggage? No, everybody has baggage. I think as long as you're alive, you're going to have some baggage. But if you don't do the work on your ego, then other people are going to have to do your work, right? Because they're going to keep having to tiptoe around you, right? So it's like the more work you do on yourself, it makes it a nicer environment for other people to be in, right? That's your gift, right? So when you heal you, that's your gift to others, right? You're easier to be around, right? You're like the animal. Animals are generally very easy to be around. Why? Because they're just loving. Why are they so loving? Because they don't hold on to all the crap. They're just being, they're in the now, they're in the moment, right? And to me, that's what healing is. It's just helping people return to the now, living in the now, being more present, unencumbered by baggage, not carrying the past forward. Anyway, if you're interested in that, check out our courses. There's 30% off the level 2 this year, the practitioner training, because it's my 30th year for bioenergy. And although I never do a discount on the level 2, there's 30% off this year, this one special 30th year. So it's a good time to check it out and see if it's something you're interested in. I also have a level 1 bioenergy on this weekend. There's 2 spots left on that if anybody's interested. Level 1 bioenergy training this weekend in Kitsilano. Please check out my website and check out the if you're interested in finding out more about that. And what else? Thank you for tuning in tonight. I'm going to stop recording. We'll hopefully see you next week.